Last week on Don't Talk TV, I started covering some of the regulations, the order in council that was enacted pursuant to Section 58 of the Quarantine Act. This week, we're going to continue and finish up that discussion to help inform you and educate you on what you might expect when you approach the border as a Canadian citizen trying to re-enter this country. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So I'm going to pick up where we left off last week, and let's just dive straight back into the order in council that I started covering last week. The link is in the show description below if you want to go check it out yourself. There's a lot of stuff there. It's hundreds of pages long. I'm just going over some of the very basic things for you to be aware of. Now, another section important to be aware of is Section 19, Sub 1, saying that every person who enters Canada must provide to the Minister of Health, screening officer, or quarantine officer a suitable quarantine plan that meets the requirements set out in subsection 18, sub 1. That I'm not going to go through the details of what is a suitable quarantine plan. The bottom line is you have to give them a quarantine plan. And part of this section and the sections that follow is you have to report to them once you arrive at your quarantine location, and you have to report to them every day your symptoms or lack of symptoms, or get another ticket under Section 58. Now, under Section 20, this order in council requires every person who enters Canada to disclose to the screening officer or quarantine officer the countries they were in during the 14-day period. But then, more importantly, under subsection 2, every person who enters Canada must disclose information related to their COVID-19 vaccination, including whether they've received a COVID-19 vaccine, the brand name, or any other information that identifies the vaccine. And if they're a vaccinated person, you have to provide proof of that. So again, ARRIVECAN seems to be the way they want that, but that has to be provided. And then here under subsection 10, this just follows on here. Anyone who enters Canada must, subsection A, answer any relevant questions asked by a screening officer, quarantine officer, a peace officer, or a public health officer designated under section 11. And sub B, provide them any information or record in the person's possession that the officer or health officer may request. Now, this is where ARRIVECAN comes in the form and manner and at the time specified by the officer, official, or chief public health officer. So they're specifying ARRIVECAN as the manner in which they're requesting. So that may be how they might try charging people for not having the ARRIVECAN app under that. But again, there is the option to log in ahead of time. So again, that's just a quick summary of some of the highlights, things that you need to be aware of, you're going to be asked about, and what the law is saying you have to do. Now again, there may be charter arguments about these. I'm not going to get into all that now because this video would be hours long if we did. But to argue the charter, you're going to have to fight it in trial. And even if you don't hire a lawyer, although I'd recommend hiring a lawyer, it's still, you're going to have to take time off work, you're going to have the stress and ordeal of going through trial. It's going to take a long time, so you should keep that in mind. Quite frankly, yelling at border officers about my rights and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms isn't going to stop them from issuing you a ticket. There's no magic formula of words that can be said to the border guards. If some people said a formula and didn't get a ticket, they might think that that formula works, but I would suggest it's not the formula that worked. It was just luck of the draw that they had a sympathetic CBSA officer that they were dealing with, and perhaps there wasn't a Health Canada official on duty. One final thing I want to look at is going back to the Quarantine Act. There's Section 14 sub 1 of the Quarantine Act says that any qualified person authorized by the minister may, to determine whether a traveler has a communicable disease or symptoms of one, use any screening technology authorized by the minister that does not involve the entry into the traveler's body of any instrument or other foreign body. Now, that's interesting because how can they require you to do PCR tests or even antigen tests in light of Section 14? Now, the way they word it is tricky. They say that a person from Public Health Canada can't administer that, but that doesn't mean that you can't submit to that from someone else. Let me show you what I'm talking about by taking a quick look at the Queen's Regulations and Orders that govern Section 126 of the National Defence Act. So the National Defense Act says every person who, on receiving an order to submit to inoculation, re-inoculation, vaccination, etc., willfully and without reasonable excuse disobeys that order is guilty of an offense. Now, when you look at the commentary under this, what it says is that no authority exists whereby a person can be forced to actually undergo inoculation, although he can be ordered to submit himself to such a procedure. I think that's what they're doing here. They're saying that there's no, like, Section 14 denies the authority for them to actually force you to take a PCR test, but yet they have the ability to order you to submit to a PCR test. So it's really splitting some legal hairs. Section 126 of the National Defense Act has never really been fully tested. I could get into that later. It's a bit too much detail to get into now, but the bottom line is we don't really know how a court would rule on that. I think there's some very interesting arguments to be made. Can Section 58 require people to do things, or can Section 58 result in regulations that violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? I don't think they can, but again, that's going to have to be resolved in court. So keep in mind that until it's resolved in court, these laws are in place, they will be enforced, and you put yourself at risk of serious fines if you don't follow the laws as written right now when re-entering Canada. So this video isn't legal advice. If you need legal advice, call a lawyer. You can call another lawyer or myself. My phone number and website are listed below. If there's show topics you'd like to see me cover, please continue with the suggestions. You can send an email to the email address listed below or leave a comment in the comment section. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.